Hey everybody, it's Wednesday, time for Wisdom Wednesday. I thought that this week I might revisit with you some ways that we can remain healthy during the holidays. We've got all the holidays coming up. We just got over Halloween, and hopefully you've done well with managing any candy that's come through the house. But for right now, let's look ahead at where we're going in the next 6 to 8 weeks and what we can do to remain as healthy as possible. Of course, we know that it's important to look at your calendar ahead of time and just visualize your week and how you want to try to manage any parties that are coming up and any times that there will be significant alcohol served, and trying to just get a handle on that. But initially, just looking at your week ahead, which is really wise to do at any point in time, but see where there may be some points where you're going to be challenged. If you look at a week in advance and you're eating 3 meals a day, that's 21 meals, and just looking at that to see where you might be able to either skip a meal if you're fasting or adjust the time eating. A lot of this has to do with timing, and so just understanding time restricted eating and trying to allow for that in the midst of celebrations and times with family and friends, etc. So as you approach a party and you think about what you're going to eat, you don't always know what's coming down the pike. You may be taking things, it may be a potluck, there may be a lovely spread, whatever it is. But when you look at your plate, again, think about staying hydrated. So maybe drinking just a good glass of water or two before you even go in someplace, so that your stomach is already slightly distended with just liquid, and a non-caloric liquid at that. And so then you're not hopefully going to be quite as tempted with eating things that are not as great for you, and knowing that there are things that along the way that you just love and you don't want to miss. That's great. Mindfully choose to eat a few of those things along the way. But if you can keep your fiber first and maybe even drink a glass of water with fiber in it prior to a meal, that can be very helpful. And then when you're looking at your plate, which we've talked about in the past, have that fiber first, then your proteins and any fats there in the middle, and then save any carbs or sweets or starches toward the end of the meal to try to blunt insulin response. Remember, it's about insulin response. So trying to make those healthy choices and just the way you eat them also can make a big difference in what it can do to your sugar spikes and what it does to insulin in terms of our body. So trying to make sure that you're kind of sticking with the vegetables and any crudités, just trying to stick with celery and carrots and bell peppers, etc., rather than chips perhaps when you have options like that. And then trying to have any sweets or anything toward the end with minimal. And then certainly with alcohol, keeping that in mind, you want to try to make sure that you reduce alcohol in terms of just not drinking as much, and making sure that you drink a glass of water perhaps in between, and choosing when and how you want to have alcohol during the week and when you have parties coming up, etc. So I would just encourage you to just be more mindful in how you approach that. The other thing, of course, is maintaining a good exercise program. Don't let that fall off during the holidays. Stay really on task with staying active and moving. And if you do have some big things coming up, maybe do a little bit more on the front or back end, to just, not because you're using that to burn off calories one way or the other, but just maintaining good muscle tone and strength and hydration while you're doing all that should help keep you from significantly gaining any weight during the holidays. It's important that this is a time that can be quite stressful for a lot of folks. Changing your routine a little bit, having more family and friends in, or just even your travel. You want to try to keep the anxiety and angst with all that down. We know that L-theanine can be quite helpful. If you're not familiar with that amino acid, it's L-theanine, Theanine. And taking a little bit of L-theanine, 200 milligrams, prior to or on busy days or anxious days can be really helpful. You can take that 2 or 3 times a day. It is over the counter. It helps calm increasing alpha waves in the brain, which are calming waves, and it doesn't sedate you at all, so it doesn't make you sleepy. And for those of you that are familiar with it, you know that it can be found in some nighttime preparations, but it doesn't really make you sleepy. It just calms the brain so that you're just not ruminating. So it's something that if you get anxious with all the busyness of the holidays and all the angst of getting things done on a timeline, etc., that can be a really helpful way to just keep things as chill as possible. Hydration, of course, we've mentioned, but staying hydrated really is important. And then prioritizing sleep. We've talked about sleep, and you all know how I feel about it. It's air, water, sleep as far as just human hierarchy of needs, even before food. That prioritizing sleep and trying to make sure that you sleep well. And that includes then trying to minimize alcohol late at night and trying to just stay as stable with your regimen and with your routine as much as possible. I know we had the chime changes last weekend, so it's going to take a few weeks to get that back in a good working order and getting the sleep cycle where it needs to be. But prioritizing that really does make a difference during the holidays, so that even if you do go off rogue and get to a party and you overdrink and overeat, that hopefully you can get back on track fairly quickly. And then, I think that it's important when we're getting together and you're in a party situation, again, to just look at the overall mountain of food and trying to keep portions down and under control. We know a lot of folks are on some of the GLP-1 inhibitors, the semaglutide, tirzepatide. So appetite will be affected, and it's just important to keep an eye on that so that you don't really try to compromise any of those areas that you're trying to work as far as your weight loss is concerned. It's probably a good idea to not let yourself get too anxious about that during this season. If you can maintain and plateau for a while, that's not necessarily a bad thing. We just don't want you gaining weight again. But for those of you that are on programs or are trying to really watch your weight, staying ahead of the game in terms of just thinking ahead and planning ahead, you're going to do so much better than just finding yourself in a situation where you are tempted and you resort to old ways. So as we look ahead to these holidays, we want you to obviously remain healthy and well. We know that a lot of folks begin to get sick. It is not uncommon, and a lot of it does have to do with how we choose to sort of change our lifestyle during this season, in that we're eating more sugar and drinking more alcohol, which then makes us just so much more susceptible to infections that come down the pike. And so keeping your immune system in good shape is, I think, a real priority by trying not to overdo these things so that your immune system can actually battle for you. Keeping some vitamin C around, vitamin D, zinc, quercetin, these types of things, if you start to feel ill, can be very helpful too. So just keep that in mind as we approach these holiday season as well. Hope you all have a great week, and this has been just a nice, gentle reminder, hopefully, of helping you plan ahead for what's coming down the pike. And you all have a great week. We'll talk again next week.